This is one of my favorite parts here. So securely attached still, which is what you want. So the magnificent interior. Again, lots of ventilation there. Just nobody's home up here. It's all gone away, lost to the sands of time. You ever found yourself lying amongst the smoldering rust particles and wondering where it all went wrong? Today we're going to be fixing more rust, redoing the giant mess that we made in the last video, and hopefully installing cab corners. That's a cab corner and that's a rocker panel. We might install those today. Nobody wants to hear about what I'm doing before I do it, so we'll talk and work at the same time. I'm trying to replace this rubber cab bushing here. Apologize for the poor lighting and poor working conditions and poor everything, but there's a new bushing. It does come with these shims, which are apparently optional, so I'm just gonna leave them out for now. Once we put the front sheet metal back on, then we can kind of see how the cab is fitting, and then if we have to, we can add those shims in here, but I'd rather not add them unless I have to. And we just put this thing on and this thing in here, and we'll just hammer this thing on with this thingy here. That lock nut, and then just tighten it all by hand because I'm a YouTuber and I got no shame. Make you watch this in slow motion so you don't miss anything. Awesome. Epic content. Wow, that was such an easy install. If you don't count all the time I spent trying to remove the seized, petrified, broken bolt that was in there before. Not to mention reconstructing everything in the surrounding area that was completely decomposed and missing from rust. Such an easy install though. Next step here is to fit the door on. Reason we want to do that before I do the rocker panel is because all of this has been replaced and right now it's just tack welded in. So we replaced the inner rocker panel, the partial floor pan, inner cowl side here, lower door post, this lower door pillar as well, and the cab braces. So there's been a lot of cutting and moving stuff around with replacement parts, and the replacement parts are never exactly the same as the original parts. Plus this was completely missing before, so we don't know, like this thing's been bouncing up and down on the road. We don't know if it's moved at all. So I had to just establish a baseline here, but I don't want to confirm that until I put the door on and make sure that the door fits, because you know this stuff might only be out by a 1/16 of an inch or an 1/8 of an inch. Doesn't seem like much, but a 1/16 of an inch here, 1/8 inch there, it all adds up pretty quick. Next thing you know, you're out by ½ inch and the door won't even fit in the opening, and you're left with a giant steaming mess. There, door's installed. Usually isn't that bad, but some idiot jacked his truck way up in the air. I don't have the proper approach angle for door installation anymore. Oh yeah, that's not gonna end in a trip to the hospital. This is so safe. Alright, I guess we don't need to watch me install door bolts for the next half an hour. So we'll come back when we're ready to shut the door. Okay, I got all the bolts in. Lined up the hinges and the bolts where they were before, just from the rust marks or whatever. So it's at least should be bolted on in the same spot it was before. Didn't fit great before, but at least we've got a starting point. This is our first close here. Well, it closes, but we've got some issues I can see already. So it's a good thing we didn't weld anything in place right now, because otherwise we'd be pretty upset with ourselves. Here's our biggest issue here, as expected. Well, I didn't expect it to be this bad, but it's a good thing we didn't weld this in permanently. It's just tack welded in. As you can see, we've got a major rubbing issue here. So there, if by the time you put the cab corner over top of that, there was no way that was ever going to work. We're also, well, this door did fit in a bit too far before. It's probably like that from new, but we are going to try to just fix that a little bit. I don't think it was this bad before, but we might not have the hinges in exactly the right spot. And then out at the top here, we're sticking too far out this way, which again, it's not a big deal. We don't seem to be rubbing anywhere else right now. Of course, we don't have the rocker panel on yet, but we're going to start by just shifting the bottom of this door out. I should also mention you want to remove this striker plate before you fit the door at all, because it'll hold the door or lift or raise it or whatever. We're just being lazy right now. But yeah, definitely remove this if you're actually want to do a good job of this. Push the bottom of the door out. I just loosen the hinges that are where they're attached to the door. It's pretty much the same for every car or truck from this era. Didn't change a whole lot, and do a little at a time. Close it again and see if it makes any difference. Okay, so this isn't going to fly, but it's not hitting there anymore, and it's still, the door's still in, but that's about exactly how it was before we cut anything out. Up here we're now flush, so that's looking a lot better. I should imagine we're not going for show car fitment on this, but that ain't gonna fly, I can tell you that right now. Anyways, this being in can all be adjusted by a striker. We also have another issue here. I've actually been rubbing on this doorpost, it looks like, for quite some time. So that means that, well, the door is going to have to get moved up slightly, and we should actually probably just take this right out just to make sure that it's not actually pulling the door in one way or the other. But we're going to start by cutting this garbage loose, tweaking it, and hopefully we can get a little better gap. I don't know if anybody's paying attention before. I know I wasn't, but anyways, we took the striker plate out. Can you hear that rubbing sound? That's this rubbing on the door jamb here, and it's been doing that for quite a while. But anyways, now that we took the striker out, it's even worse, which means that the striker was actually pulling this door upwards. If you look at these body lines here, you can see, well, if you were paying attention before, they were pretty well level before, and now you can see it's down, meaning the door has to come up. If the door comes up, then it will stop rubbing on that door jamb. But the striker itself was actually pulling the door that far up, which you don't want the striker to pull the door up. You want it, there can't be any like actual tension on it. All it's supposed to do is just hold the door shut. So to adjust the height, we have to move these hinges on the cowl here. This is again pretty similar to any vehicle from this era. You can get a little bit of height out of the hinge to door, but in this case I want to kind of fiddle with this gap as well, because we're getting greedy now. So we'll just kind of make our adjustments with these hinges here and see what we get. Alright, so I think for old Chevy truck standards and just preliminary without having anything fully welded, I think we're at least in the ballpark now. Again, we're not getting things perfect on this, but I just want it to close and it's not rubbing anymore. So now we can put our striker plate back on, get that adjusted, and then possibly start welding. Striker's back in. We made all of our adjustments here. This takes a bit of fine tuning to get everything in the right spot. It's just moving things a little bit, retightening, moving it a little bit, retightening. As we're adjusting it, we just want to make sure that the door closes smoothly. It's not riding up or riding down on the striker. And then we also just want to check for flushness here. Of course, our adjustment in and out, there's up and down and in and out. So up and down is whether or not it's going to ride up and down on it, which you don't want. That's why we removed it, to set our body lines. And now everything's about as good as we can get it for now. There's going to be fine tuning going forward, obviously. And we're not trying to make it perfect, but I just don't want things that are like sticking out a quarter of an inch, or it just looks terrible. So our body lines are about as good as they're going to get for an old truck, and it opens and closes very smoothly now. Really can't complain about that. So we're not rubbing anywhere. We have clearance on the inside everywhere, so things are looking positive right now. You always adjust your doors to fit the fixed panel, the panel that's welded on. So in this case, we're adjusting our door to fit the back of the cab, and obviously up here, because none of this can change. The door can change, the fender can change, we can shim, we can tweak and fit, and the fender bolts on, so we can fit that any which way. But if the door does not fit here, then it's hopeless. We can't change this. If I was working on a car, let's say a 4-door car, then I don't start with the front door, I start with the back door. I fit the back door to the quarter panel. Once the back door is fitting to the quarter panel, then the front door gets fit to the back door, and then finally the front door would get fit to the front of the car. I'm not fitting the doors on this because this car is a wooden framed nightmare mess, but anyways, just as an example. And if this was a 2-door, same deal. We would be fitting the door to the quarter panel first, and then fitting it to the front of the car second. Not a good example because this is a 30s car which has like a cowl and everything, but hopefully that explains some of that. I also don't worry about gaps as much on these older cars. That's kind of the last thing I worry about. First thing is obviously whether or not it's rubbing anywhere, but kind of the most important thing, just for appearance sake, is making sure that the car is actually tangent. So that's where we make sure that all of our body lines and everything are kind of in one straight line. And that's kind of the hardest thing to do because, well, you can see this car, it's all over the place. So trying to get all that lined up and right, and things where the door isn't rubbing, and so it all looks like in one straight line, that it does make a big difference to the final appearance of a car, more so than the gaps or anything else. Obviously gaps are important too, but that's another problem for another day. I quickly tossed the rocker panel on with a couple of sheet metal screws, and I'm not really seeing anything here that's going to prevent me from welding all the inner structure on. Obviously needs a few tweaks and as to be expected, but nothing catastrophic. The door opens and closes without rubbing. Closes nice still. Gaps on rocker panels are never great, but see, it's fairly consistent here and looks okay. So yeah, let's pop this off and start welding. So on these lower door pillars here, there's actually like a recess here. I don't know if you can see that. That's where the outer rocker panel kind of fits in, and then this just gets seam sealed along here. So the issue we ran into here is that this was rusted out like right up to here. You know, trying to finish out a weld in this seam is, I would rather have the seam down here somewhere or up here, so it'll be easier to finish out the weld seam. But the problem is that, as with any aftermarket patch, this isn't exactly the same shape as this is, so it wasn't going to fit if I had put it up higher here. Like, I would have had to do a bunch of messing around and make it fit right. But because the rocker panel goes over it and then it gets seam sealed, everything below that line is hidden anyways. So that's why I just put it down here, and then it'll get seam sealed. And you can see we didn't try like finishing out the weld or anything. There'd be no point. It fits well enough where the rocker panel fits over it, and that's all I really care about. You probably saw me use this to kind of knock down this weld seam a bit here, and you can see I only knocked it down until I started hitting the surrounding metal, and then I stopped. The thing with these belt sanders is they're really easy to just go overboard and basically dig a trench, which we don't want to do. We only want to just take the weld off. So that's why most of the time I prefer these roll-lock discs, but I mean, it won't really fit in here, especially with the door on, and I didn't want to take the door off, so that's why I used This, this is what, get to the point, you idiot. It's handy for times like this, but I don't normally use these. I see a lot of people use these and they just basically dig a trench until the weld completely disappears, but then you've completely compromised the strength of it, which, you know, what's the point of replacing all this if we're just going to grind all the metal away again so that it's paper thin again. Also, when I'm not doing like a show vehicle, which I never do show vehicles, obviously, I just fix garbage. So this is garbage, so I'm not going to bother grinding any of the other welds that aren't going to be visible. Fender fits over here. The only part that I really wanted to knock down is this. The other downside though to them is that these belts are extremely expensive and they don't last very long. The cheapest of the cheap belts that I've bought for them, they're like still $10 for a pack of 5, and the belts don't even last like for, if I was grinding down this plug weld, it would probably take two belts just to grind down that plug weld. You get a lot more value out of these, and then when you're done, you can still cut them down and use them on a smaller grinder like this. I decided to try out these Cubitron ones. These are supposed to be the best ever, and even this, you know, I don't know, this is like a box of 10. I don't remember exactly what I paid for it, but it was crazy expensive. Definitely better value than the $10 for a pack of 5 that I was buying before, but even that, like, this is already pretty well burnt up, and all I did was just grind this little tiny bit here and this little tiny bit inside here. So that's you know, that's going to add up in a big hurry. It's just another reason why I don't use this on a regular basis. In this case, saved me a pile of time taking the door back off just to grind that little bit. Now I can just go straight to fitting the rocker panel on with the door in place. I got this thing kind of clamped on in place here, and things are just kind of going way too good and smooth. I don't understand it. It's actually fitting not too bad, or at least good enough for what we're trying to achieve here. So I guess I might as well just go ahead and weld it on. I already got all the holes drilled for plug welding. Everything's already prepped, ready to go. So there's no need to take it on and off 1,500 times. You just go straight to welding, I guess. Little hack tip for these lower rocker panel pinch welds here. I like to drill for plug welds from the backside and then lay under and plug weld this way, and then that way all you gotta do is just do light grind across the surface and you don't got to grind down a bunch of welds. Just makes for a lot less work, and it's cleaner when you're done. You don't have to do any body work down here. One thing you can always see is when somebody's changed a rocker panel before, and then you look down and you can see all the grinder marks and the little weld nuggets and everything all along the bottom. But when it's welded from the backside, then people can't tell that some hack has been in here until it's too late. Plus, a lot less grinding. You don't have to lay on your back and do body work and grinding for whatever. You have to lay on your back and weld, but then it's done. So unfortunately on the newer trucks, the inner rocker panel is usually a lot thicker metal, and it's like multiple layers all welded together. So you can't really do this on the newer trucks. You don't really have much choice, but on these older trucks or older vehicles at all, I always just try to drill them from the backside. It just makes a lot less work. So there's your hack tip of the day. That's about where we're going to call it here. Got the rocker panel on. It fits reasonably well, at least for what we're going for. The door bottom is super roached out on this, but I'm not getting into that. So I just want to make sure it's sitting fairly flush. It's not sticking out too bad anywhere and whatever. And you know, it measures out to the same spots as the old one does, so that's good too. And it's all solid now. It's probably the first time this thing's had a rocker panel in about 30-40 years, so can't complain about that too much. I'll plug weld it in here, all along here, all up in there. There you have it. Also not a bad idea to fit the seal in here, or at least before you do like a final fit on the door, definitely put the seal in. Not quite at that stage yet, but I think we're in the ballpark from what I've encountered thus far. It did go way too smoothly though. Door seems to close good. Next time around we'll be installing a new cab corner, getting it all fit up to here and everywhere else that it needs to fit to. So that'll be pretty exciting. And then we have the privilege of doing the same thing over on this side, except this side's probably considerably worse. So won't that be fun?
Back in my day, it was considered bad form to not tell an idiot that he was never going to mount to anything.
Well, that Shed by the Tracks character has gone too far this time. He accused me of being the T word. That's right. Tolerant.
Arguing for tolerance is big-time YouTuber Kyle Carter from Carter's Hairstyle.
And if that wasn't enough, he's been using his social media empire to spread wild rumors that I've been using the metric system. Long-time viewers of the channel will know that I've been violently opposed to the metric system ever since day one. No, I tried settling things, you know, the right way, YouTuber to YouTuber. Yeah, I'm sure you know how that went. Starts going on some big rant there, making derogatory comments about people in Saskatchewan being slow. You know, that may be true, but I can't help it. I was born here. Well, after listening to him spout off for the better part of an hour, finally asked, what is this all about? Like, what do you want? What's the bottom line here? I should have known better than to ask that question. It's the same story every time with all these big time YouTubers. Of course, all he wants is more subscribers. He wants my subscribers. As you can tell, I've just been right powerful upset about the whole thing. At this point, you know what? Just give the guy what he wants. Let's just end it here. So, if you guys could all just unsubscribe for me and go over to Shed by the Tracks and subscribe to him, you know, give him what he wants, and you know, we can just end this feud. I'm sure you're all tired of hearing about it, as I'm tired of dealing with it. I'm just so stressed out I can't take it anymore. So please go subscribe to Shed by the Tracks and unsubscribe from my channel. Don't forget to dislike this video, and don't share it or do any of those things, it really would help me out. Thank you. Hey, where are y'all going? I still got grievances to air. Now this next channel that I got a bone to pick with is a smaller channel that you probably haven't heard of yet. By the time I'm done, you're gonna know all about them. Goes by the name of DD Speed Shop or something like that. A little while ago, they was having a contest to give away a car for $1. The rules of the contest was pretty simple. All you had to do is make a 3-minute video telling a compelling story about why you deserve the car. And the other rule was you couldn't have a YouTube channel already. But I felt like my story was so compelling that the rules didn't apply to me. And I think you're all going to agree after you view my contest entry submission. Hello, my name is Kyle, and old cars have ruined my life. Now, I don't want, need, or even deserve your wonderful 1966 Biscayne. The following 4.5-hour long documentary is simply an elaborate ploy to waste as much of your valuable time as possible. Anyways, it all started many years ago when I was a young girl growing up in the big city. You see, I had a dream. That dream was to excuse me one moment. As you can see, this is no laughing matter. Anyways, that dream was to take a 1966 Biscayne 2-door and convert it back into a 4-door. So, I'm willing to offer you $2 and a pack of smokes for your car. Not saying I should win, but you might want to at least think about it. Long story short, I get disqualified, would you believe? Car ends up going to some young fella that actually deserves it. Boy, that really cooks my biscuits. Well, that about gets all the drama out of my system for this week. Tune in next week. We're going to weld on a cab corner. Maybe do some more welding on other stuff. Welding, welding, welding.